Scene 14, the sorting ceremony. The auditorium buzzed with an almost electric anticipation. Students filled every seat, eyes trained on the stage as they waited, each cloaked in an air of expectancy. To Tira, the atmosphere felt like a graduation, but with a fresh undercurrent of excitement. This ceremony marked the official welcoming into Manaheim Academy, where they'd each receive a house mantle, a cloak symbolizing their place within the school. As the lights dimmed, Professor Aubergine stepped forward, his robes flowing with a bright, scholarly elegance that matched his lively energy. His gaze swept the room, eyes warm but keen. "Welcome back, students," he began, his voice both inviting and authoritative. "By now, you've each completed your first trial of many, a journey into the unknown that was both real and not." He paused to let the words sink in. Yes, the quest was a simulation. But in those moments you acted on instinct, learning from every step you took, every choice you made. And yes, he chuckled, for those who may have had a bit of trouble staying on their feet, remember that this is the place for mistakes. Manaheim is where we fail faster in order to learn sooner, to sharpen ourselves for life's trials beyond our halls. Around her, Tira caught glimpses of relief or disappointment on a few faces. She glanced at her group, feeling an inner calm in their presence. She realized that rather than drained, she felt refreshed. Perhaps, she thought, stepping back into reality had been designed to grant them rejuvenation. Professor Aubergine continued with a twinkle in his eye. "Now you've each shown promise. You've tested yourselves, and today you're ready to stand in the place that best nurtures you." He extended a hand toward the woman in the squash and zucchini robes, the bespectacled Madame Courgette, who stood beside him with a gleeful smile. "When your name is called," Madame Courgette's voice rang out, squeaky yet clear. "Please come up to receive your house mantle." The ceremony began with a soft murmur of applause as each student approached the stage and received their cloak from their house professor. Chris Aaron, a boy with dark eyes and a tall, serious frame, stood and walked to the stage, receiving his blue mantle for the Azure Bears. A murmur of applause rippled through the room as he returned to his seat. One by one, each student approached the stage where they received their cloak from their house professor. The ceremony continued. Tira watched with bated breath as students from various groups were sorted, the atmosphere brimming with anticipation. Then the first name of Tira's group was announced. Mac Blackwood. Mac strode confidently to the stage, a mix of pride and casual certainty on his face. Already wearing his yellow golden eagle jacket, he looked as if he'd known all along. A few chuckles rippled through the crowd, and Tira found herself smiling. Mac, in his element, seemed born for the Golden Eagles. As he shook the hand of his house professor, he caught Tira's eye and tied his thumbs to create wings out of his hands, inspiring cheers from other Golden Eagles in the crowd. With a grin, Mac returned to his seat, the yellow mantle draped over his shoulders like a statement. Tira watched closely as the Broadnoxie twins, Kelly Broadnoxie and Kenny Broadnoxie, were called. They both rose, ascending the stage one after the other. Kenny's serious focus contrasted with Kelly's warm, enthusiastic energy, yet both were sorted into the Azure Bears. Tira marveled at their differences and similarities, Kenny's cautious pragmatism and Kelly's open conscientiousness. They embodied two different sides of the same coin, and Tira couldn't help but think how well their Azure Bear mantles suited them, grounding them in a sense of stability. "Thomas Elfkyle." Tommy walked to the stage with a quiet resolve that struck Tira. She remembered how he'd shared his desire to break out from his family's legacy. When he donned the Golden Eagle's yellow mantle, he wore it as if it were the first page in his own story. His gaze found hers. He fixed his glasses and gave her a small, determined smile, a look that said he was finally ready to make his own mark on the world. "Devin Grazzo." Devin's name reverberated through the hall, drawing a hush over their group as he took the stage with disciplined poise. His crimson tiger's mantle seemed to amplify his fierce resolve, perfectly matching his natural intensity. As he returned to his seat, his expression was unreadable, yet Tira sensed a quiet contentment. Devin was where he belonged. "Elizabeth Hadbucks." Liz ascended the stage with her signature, confident stride, accepting her Crimson Tiger's mantle with an almost theatrical elegance, shaking hands with her house professor as if she were royalty. As she turned, her eyes caught Tira's, and Liz gave her a playful wink, a glint of pride in her gaze. Tira couldn't help but think how right it felt to see Liz and Devon in the Crimson Tigers, two intense forces bound by the same fierce energy. Glancing around, Tira noted how few Crimson Tigers were being called. Having two in their group felt rare, as if it added an extra layer of strength to their team. As Tira watched the sorting unfold, she noticed Max's voice offering quiet commentary in her mind. Addie Lum. Addie shot Tira a beaming smile before practically bouncing down the steps to receive her golden eagle cloak. She accepted her mantle with a bright energy, waving back at the group. She looked radiant in the yellow, her joy grounding Tira with a sense of ease. Bannock McBain! Bannock's name brought a flutter of surprise to Tira, and she watched him with renewed interest. He ascended with quiet assurance, and when the verdant deer green mantle settled over his shoulders, she felt a surge of recognition. Verdant deer's compassion and wisdom fit him perfectly. His grounding presence in the swamp had been just the first glimpse of that depth. As he returned to his seat, he caught her eye, giving a nod that sent a warmth through her. Valerie Magnotti. Val walked confidently, her calm expression unwavering. When she too received the verdant deer mantle, Tira felt her assumptions shift. She'd expected Val in the Crimson Tigers, but seeing her in verdant deer brought a hidden warmth to light, a quiet complexity Tira had sensed but hadn't fully understood. Val's knowing glance toward Bannock deepened Tira's growing connection to her friends and their new house. Perhaps there's more to Val, still awaiting discovery. Max's voice murmured. Then came the long stretch between Magnotti and Walder, giving Tira time to mull over her place among the houses. Azure bears, she thought, picturing herself in the blue mantle alongside Kelly and Kenny. The stability appealed to her, but it also felt potentially suffocating. Her thoughts drifted to the Golden Eagles. With Addie, Mac, and Tommy, the Golden Cloak felt bold and adventurous, a space to explore. But perhaps it was too loud for her. The Crimson Tigers intrigued her too. Strength, tenacity, qualities she aspired, but didn't quite feel. The fiery energy seemed overwhelming. She wasn't sure she'd thrive in such an intense environment. And then verdant deer, with Bannock and Val. The green mantle's quiet wisdom, harmony, and empathy held a peacefulness she found deeply comforting. It felt like home. Teresa Walder. The sound of her true name broke through her thoughts. She rose, each step amplifying the low thrum of nerves in her chest. The auditorium seemed vast, the lights almost blinding, until a familiar voice rang out. Go, Tira. Addie's cheer was clear and bright, bolstered by claps from her friends. Bolstered, she continued up to the stage, meeting Professor Aubergine's kind eyes as he extended his hand. She shook it, feeling warmth seep through her as he held her gaze. Then she turned to face Professor Mrydel, her expression calm and serene. With her unique orange eyes, so much like her own late mother's, Professor Mrydel looked at her with a warmth that felt familiar. Welcome home, Tira, she whispered, draping the verdant deer mantle around her shoulders. The words struck a deep chord within her, the cloak settling over her as if sealing a promise. The weight of the green mantle felt like an embrace, not of being a misfit, like what many might say about the deer, but of belonging. She returned to her seat, her head held high, feeling as though she'd embraced something she'd thought previously unattainable. As she sat, she took in the sight of her friends, each now adorned in their new colors. Addie, Mac, and Tommy in bright yellow, Kelly and Kenny in the grounding blue, Liz and Devon in fierce crimson, and Bannock, Val, and herself in calm, wise green. A quiet joy blossomed within her, a victory not of strength, but of connection. Surrounded by friends in every color, she felt the bonds forming between them. In her mind, Max's voice echoed, gentle and pleased. See, Tira, it never mattered where you ended up, you've already found your place. She smiled, feeling it bloom in her heart as she looked out across the room, anticipation for what lay ahead. This was only the beginning, and with her friends by her side, she felt ready for anything.